This video is brought to you by AKS IAS.
Hello aspirants, my name is Advocate Manoj Madhav and we'll be discussing on the topic history or the subject history. We shall have some deep insight into what is to be done during the preliminary preparation for UPSC. So generally there are people do get scared about the subject, that is history. So I would say that there is no need for such kind of troubled mindset when you are reading the subject. Yes, of course, the circulation is that it's a very vast subject, and because of that vastness alone, people get scared. But I would say that let history be vast. UPSC aspirant doesn't need to be fearful. Why you don't have to be? That's a question which I am going to answer. So I would tell you, I always tell my students this. Just be in the form of a horse, a war horse. Of course, UPSC is a war, and you are the horse. You need to get to the destination, whichever, IAS, IPS, IRS, whatever you intend to, you need to reach the destination. So while you are moving on, the horse, in order not to get scared, wears an eye patch. We all have seen the eye patch also. It's just that it should not get distracted by the shadow which it fears. This is what we should do with the subject history. It's the only thing that you can do, because it's very vast. So all I am saying, you become the horse and you wear the eye patch. So the eye patch is like syllabus. The syllabus is the savior. It's one of the easiest subject in history. And if you stick to syllabus, I can assure you, any history lecturer will assure you it's one of the easiest to deal with. You don't have to repeat anything. What is already the fact is not going to change or seldom going to change. So since it's not going to change, all you need to do is just follow the syllabus. Stick to it. See, there will be a lot of distractions. When you start learning history, history is a subject which involves a lot of curiosity. So once curiosity comes in, you're out of the game. Why? Because endless papers are there, endless attempts are there by historians and amateur, history enthusiasts who give a lot of comments on particular subjects. We don't have the time to learn all this. So stick particularly to syllabus, and when you come to syllabus, make sure that you are exclusively on the line of the foundation, exclusively on the line of NCERT. That's the only idea that you can have. That's the only weapon you have to lay the foundation for history. Please religiously follow this. Religiously. There is no other go. NCERT. Once you come into this, so 6th to 12th, there is the NCERT coming. Okay, fine. Once the idea is started or begun, where all we have to give importance. Now history is the subject for UPSC, especially preliminary exam. We have to concentrate more on ancient, medieval, modern. Okay. And parts from postmodern. Yes, of course, there are elements which are asked from that. But ancient, medieval and modern. When you come into ancient India, please give more importance to certain areas in ancient India. Like, recently, the news what comes in matters a lot. So imagine history is vast. Even if you stick to syllabus also, comparing to the other subjects, it is vast. Where will you get the question from? It's a normal doubt for every aspirant. So for that, the help is exclusively newspaper. Because what happens with current affairs is mostly what is repeated in your question paper. There are the topics which are picked from, and there are certain topics which interests UPSC itself. We have seen repeated questions coming in. When you see past 20-30 years questions also, you have that kind of an understanding. Questions are not going to change. The idea is like, it's very essential. What we can say is complete dependency on newspaper. So when it comes to newspaper, say what all news does belong to historical ideas. For example, recently what all news are there, which connects with the history. One of the best examples I can give is Keeladi, near to Madurai in Tamil Nadu. So they have found almost similar archaeological artifacts which was found in Indus Valley civilization. So almost the exact thing is found here, and so that is a possibility of question. And another example what we can take on is the components on national movement. The most expected question that we can go, what were the events? Those are probable questions. 1920. 1920, what is going to be the major event in India? We are going with ancient, medieval and modern. 1920, modern India. What is going to be the question? That is non-cooperation movement. Before that, we had 1919 Khilafat movement. So Khilafat movement is always connected with non-cooperation movement. Combine these two together, you have a beautiful answer. That's an expected area of question. So ancient India we saw one area, modern India we saw one. Now coming into medieval, so it's not even centenaries that is going to be asked. There's definitely going to be millennia, 1000 years. So 1020, what did happen? So 1020, in general, who were the kind of rulers of India, who ruled major part of India? So 1000 means we can exactly give the Cholas were there, the Chalukyas were there. So likewise, so what kind of idea do we have on these kind of, and these people are not so great with, the entirety of India. They were regional powers. Among the regional powers, what is best for you? What is the best form of question to be asked? They were regional powers. So question can very rarely come from the kings or the queens that ruled these areas, be it Chalukyas of Kalyani or Cholas of Tanjavur, so on. We got a question like architecture, 1020. So 1020 means one monument is pretty new, almost 1000 years before, called Brihadishwaram. So Brihadishwaram is a temple, 1000 years before is new. A question on that, it should have been asked in 2010, not in 20. But kind of questions can come from there also. Okay. At the same time, I am talking about Cholas. Let me take you to one more place. Linking it to current affairs. Mahabalipuram. When you talk on Mahabalipuram, whereas the Chinese president had visited Mahabalipuram along with our, honorable Prime Minister. So Mahabalipuram, since the visit of Chinese president, will get more importance in UPSC. You have to learn about the architecture. Now Mahabalipuram is not Chola. It precedes the era. That is, I went from 1000 years. So almost this is what current affairs, millennias, centenaries. This is what is going to ask. You are going to get a question on expected Mahabalipuram. That is also there. So I hope you kind of have an understanding. Now let's segmentize again. Let's come to ancient India exclusively. The general version I have given. Let's come to ancient India exclusively. Say, I have told about, Indus Valley civilization. One of the prominent areas where Indus Valley, ancient India has questions. And another area where we see most of the questions coming from ancient India is Buddhism, Jainism, such kind of topics. Other than that, we don't see much of, kings and queens being asked. Art and architecture culture has serious impact on ancient India. Okay, coming now to medieval India. So where will medieval India come? Again, the sultans or the badshahs or the nawabs or nizams, none of them matters. Matter is mostly, again, art, culture and architecture. So when you come to north, for example, 2018 there was a question, Buland Darwaza. Buland Darwaza was an article given in Hindu newspaper in Friday Review. I would suggest, my dear aspirants, please read Friday Review, and most of the information you get from the Friday Review has chances of appearing in UPSC for art and culture. So when you talk on culture, art and architecture, go for Friday Review newspaper and have a general understanding from these books, whichever suits your rhyming. Let it be. So that's for art, architecture and culture. As I was mentioning, Buland Darwaza came from the art and culture. Not only this one question, several questions, if you look in deep, was asked from Hindu alone. So newspaper has a special weightage that you must keep in mind. Then, so medieval India, as I mentioned, modern India again, the national movement has preferences. Earlier times, very say like 10, 15, 20 years before or something, more factual knowledge was brought out. But as of now, factual knowledge is very limited, but more concerned with current administration. What is the administrative scenario, or what is the current scenario of the society? So more on administration, more on society, more on culture, more on art. These kind of questions do come by. So please have a deep look into such areas. And here, when you concern of books, I mentioned about NCERT. After finishing NCERT, for ancient India, as far as my recommendation goes, I would tell R.S. Sharma for ancient India, more than enough. A general overview you will get, very good. And medieval India, Satish Chandra. Satish Chandra, a single book for combining both sultans and Mughals, including Bahmanid and Vijayanagar, comes by. Many of the people do mistake by buying the volume 1 and volume 2. For preliminary, you don't need another read other than Satish Chandra. And coming into modern India, I would suggest, many people says about Bipin Chandra. Bipin Chandra's ideology is as a historian. I am not very personally, I don't suggest my students for preliminary exam, Bipin Chandra. You can take it from mains. Other than that, I would suggest Spectrum, Rajiv Ahir, IPS. So that's a good book to read. And there is an enlarged or revised version is there, which is an enlarged form. I mean, a lot of more information is added. Not the guide I am saying. See, Rajiva here, Spectrum is a guide. Do not go to read from the book directly. You learn something. In order to help you for what you have learned, you need a guide. Many people do the mistake of directly going into the guide. Please don't do the mistake. Read from a good source. I would say Spectrum itself has say larger version, as I was telling. Go for that and then stick to guide. Please understand the essence of guide. It's to guide you, not so that there will be very limited information there. First time itself, do not go read that. Read it from a good source. Again, it's modern India. When you look at the questions also that comes by, history is a subject which maintains consistency. History is the only subject which maintains consistency. If you look past 10 years, 11 to 22, it has not gone beyond this. It's shifting between 11 to 22, it will just play on like this. So it has value. 20% of the exam depends on history. Out of this 20%, ancient, medieval, modern. If you look, nearly 5 to 7 questions only come from ancient and medieval. Rest, all the questions are modern. So please do give your due attention to modern. You need to follow that religiously again. Modern India, I have suggested the books. So all the books are okay. Go with NCERT and link your information always with the current affairs. From the current affairs, you will have most of the questions being asked. Follow personal again, newspaper religiously, because that's the source to pluck out questions, expected questions. UPSC is the most unpredictable, institution that we have. So nobody can come and tell you this is where. No. Please don't believe those kind of rumors or kind of mythical ideologies. Understand just one concept, that UPSC is very unpredictable. But what can be expected is through a better understanding of how UPSC works. Okay, we can just, make assumptions. Assumptions can be done by us. Other than that, nothing more can be done. Let's be honest with each other. Let's not boast that this is what is going to happen. There's a certainty. No, it's just assumptions. So the wildest or assumptions are given by people. But if you can come anywhere near to the precise area, that's on newspaper. So what all information comes on newspaper, depending on anything that relates to history, there you have it. Collect that information and keep. Study a little bit. Put a little bit of effort into collecting that information. History has one norms. So what I would suggest is just, read the books that are there, collect information from newspaper, and then be peaceful. Do not fear the subject. The first thing, don't fear. Because you fear, you're already dead. You're as good as dead. Please do not fear. First, what I suggest my students is that when you start reading a book, let it be slow, but finish the book. So what happens is, when you finish the book, you will feel, the book is below you. Always there is a lower status. But when you don't finish, oh, I have not finished you. It reaches here. That's not good for you. Just read it off. I'm not asking you to study here. I am saying to conquer. So to conquer, let's finish it fast. So once you bring it down, your psychology says, psychologically you have that thought, your book is here. Then it will be much more easier for you to read that book again. And history has no shortcuts. The only shortcut is revision. Again and again and again and again, how much you read, that's your benefit with history. For example, you have a friend, he or she told you his or her name. If you don't repeat that name, the more you remember, the more you revise, or the more you say out their name loud, the more you remember that. This is what is history. It's just about human beings. And another one more example that you need to have is remember these things, topics in the line of stories. These are all pure stories. So once you remember it like a story, it's not an event, it's just a story. So once you don't have any pressure in your head, the topic doesn't pressurize you, very easy to conquer that. I can assure you, this all can be done. I wish you all the best.
This video is brought to you by AKS IAS.